Get ready.
This is the voice of Wayne America.
Lighten up, Francis.
With your host,
Hi-ho, Kermit the Frog here.
Mike Carnes.
How do you measure yourself with other golfers?
By height.
Only at WayneAmerica.com.
The supernova's gonna kill us all.
Okay, this guy is the real zero, that's true. Just think back when you guys were freshmen, huh?
.com.
Greetings from Wayne America. This is the Voice of Wayne America podcast, an exclusive here at WayneAmerica.com. I'm your host, Mike Carnes, and every week here on the Voice of Wayne America podcast, we sit down with somebody who has some kind of connection to the community of Wayne, Nebraska, and we talk about their connection and their field of interest and how it ties in with the best town in all of America, and that's right here in Wayne, America. We want to thank our sponsors, including AKA 142 Media, and your business can also be mentioned here. You can email me at mike@mikeycproductions.com for more information. Kind of a little different thing on the program here. Usually we have somebody that lives here in Wayne that has the Wayne connection. Our guest this week is kind of somebody that has a connection to Wayne, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But the cool part about who he is, or one of the many cool parts about who he is the fact that he is a New York Times best-selling author, and his book is called 20 Seconds, A True Account of Survival and Hope. And we have Robert Tremblay with us here on the program this week to talk about his book and to talk about his connection to Wayne America. And Robert, first off, welcome to Wayne, and thanks for taking time to talk this week.
Oh, thanks for having me. And I used to come here. I've probably come here 4 or 5 times throughout my career, and this place just found a place in my heart. I've traveled all over the country, but I always seem to make it back to Wayne, America.
Uh-huh. And how did you get connected with Wayne in the first place? You worked for, you've done some work in the automotive sales industry, and tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, prior to my illness, I was a consultant and executive contract manager in the automobile and finance industry. So I used to come to Arnie's Ford to do some consulting work and helping them out. And of course, I traveled to hundreds of other bigger dealerships. But the first time I came to Wayne and met Bill and Betty Reed and Kenny and the gang down at Arnie's Ford, I literally signed up to keep coming back. And of course, Kenny used to tell me it was the steak. The Nebraska steak that brought me back, but we know differently because it's, this community reminded me of my survival, and I just think they got it, and it's what I spend my days traveling around the country talking about, which is community and the positive impact of connectivity and supporting each other as neighbors and friends. And so talk about, people said, why Wayne, America? Why Wayne, Nebraska? And I just said, whether they understand it or not. And I'm not trying to decide whether they can or can't. It's these people here in this community get it. Do you know what I mean? They literally get connectivity and support and lifting each other up. And there's very little I have to do here as far as educating that community, but I did want to celebrate them because they do get it.
Yeah, and you had a nice little crowd at Bressler Park Thursday night for your presentation, and I know just in listening to the presentation, I was awestruck by what you have gone through that has led you to write this book. And I know a lot of the people who were there too were equally taken. I don't know if it's surprise or what. How do you describe it? But I know that it was a very, very intriguing discussion you had, and so it was really neat to see people.
It was. We had a lot of people come afterwards and share some intimate thoughts, and the amount of synchronicity that was present after and during the event was astounding, and it was hard to miss for many people. Yeah. And I can't thank people enough for sharing their time down there at the park, but it was the individual folks and a lot of folks from hospice that showed up, which, we can't say enough about folks in hospice and their sacrifices and their service they were so important for my journey when I joined hospice and spent 2 months, with a hospice nurse and all the facilitators with hospice. You just can't say enough about that group.
Yeah. Yeah, a very special group. And there was a number of those people there Thursday evening as well. Talk about getting this book published. the fact that you're a New York Times bestseller is that's an impressive thing for any author has written a book. But the thing that I find amazing about this, and I think a lot of people who know anything about book publishing do, is that this is a self-published book.
Yeah.
And a lot of New York Times bestsellers, the vast majority of them are coming out of major publishing houses. For somebody to self-publish a book and to have it do so well that it makes the New York Times bestselling list is like it's like winning the lottery. It's just that rare of an occurrence.
It's been very surreal. Our publisher has been somewhat unsupportive in the sense that it's an indie publisher, so you pay them to publish, and we actually started a crowdfunding campaign just one day out of the blue, and they're very generally not successful in the publishing world. And lo and behold, just like everything along my journey, it just came at the right time, manner, and sequence, and it got funded, and we published. But according to the industry standard, there's a 0.0004% chance of your book doing anything self-published, and so we tried to be careful of our expectations, but I have to be honest with you. I knew exactly what was going to go on with this book. There's some powerful messages in this book, and it's more than just about life after death. There's a specific cause to this book, and we felt so inspired by it that we started the charity to go with the book, because I didn't want it to be about profit. And I don't think that's a dirty word, Mike. It's just, for me, I've so changed who I am that every time you click on Amazon and buy my book, I make $1.56. Amazon makes 5 times more than I do. My publisher makes 4 times more than I do, even though I paid them to publish. So it's an awful, horrendous business. But it's been a great journey, and it'll be 2 years in August. So we're going to repackage the book under a different publisher, I believe, by August, and resubmit that thing. And while we negotiate this silver screen deal and try to get this all worked out, that's been a crazy journey. Just like really the whole journey from the start of how I survived and how I continue to survive. It was just one miracle after another.
Yeah, and this book is an amazing book. I've gotten about through the first half of it already, and I'm dying to get through the rest of it here and really catch everything about this book. And it's a great book, and we're going to talk a little more about that here on the Voice of Wayne America podcast. First off, I want to answer the question: what does AKA in AKA 142 Media stand for? It stands for many things, but the most important thing is that AKA 142 Media provides awesome kickin' apps that can be downloaded to your phone or tablet. Whether it's your school, your favorite youth sports program, or your local business, AKA 142 Media can build an awesome kickin' app that meets your needs. And you might want to keep an eye out for the official Wayne America mobile app that's going to be coming very soon. In fact, if you have an Android phone, you can already download it. The Apple version of the mobile app is coming very soon. And for more information on getting the mobile app designed, you can send Kevin an email at kevin@ak142.com and tell him Mike sent you. That's AKA142 Media, awesome kickin' apps. We're talking with Robert Tremblay, the author of the book 20 Seconds, A True Account of Survival and Hope. He is in Wayne. He was here for a presentation on Thursday night and was good enough to hang around for a couple of days and sit down and do an interview with us here on the Voice of Wayne America. And I'll tell you what, this story is mind-boggling. It is just absolutely out of this world that what Mr. Tremblay has been through in his life. He's as he mentioned earlier, he's had been involved in helping automotive dealers with their businesses and was quite successful with that. And then had a kind of a physical some physical things happen that really has altered his life in ways that you can't even possibly imagine. I've been through about half of the book and I've gotten, I think, about half of the story so far, and just what he has been through is just amazing. Just talk a little bit about where the story began for you, as far as the health issues and how you've been able to get through everything you've been through.
Well, that's a long time frame of a question. It's been 6 years. I was diagnosed terminal originally February 16th of 2011. I was diagnosed out of the blue. I'd been sick for about a year. I just couldn't find it. We couldn't find what was going on. I'd lost a lot of weight. I'd gotten weak. I inevitably was diagnosed terminal in an emergency room in North Carolina with 6 weeks. And, you talk about the movie line, get your affairs in order. And I have to be honest with you, Mike, it's actually what they say. And I don't mean to shock people, but, it was surreal listening to a 24-year-old intern diagnose you as terminal with your wife present and all the things that go on in your head almost immediately. So, there was a lot of my story and even the science of the story now that, high school biology probably just isn't cutting it anymore for most of us. And but it was fascinating, the people who came out of the woodwork for me and supported me and lifted me up, and whether they gave me 20 seconds or 20 minutes or 2 hours, I felt so much love and appreciation for every moment I got. And, there was a big part of my journey that was filled with social isolation as you battled these diseases and illnesses, and you shut yourself in to kind of grind it out. But the more I reached out and the more people reached out to me, the more I healed. And, as you know, Mike, there's parts of my story that are confounding to the doctors. And we keep hearing about all these miraculous healing stories. But mine, honestly, it's taken me a while to even come to the realization that mine's a little bit unique. And I have to step back away from it a little bit and remind myself that even the Mayo Clinic that I'm a patient at cannot understand or explain that my continued survival and the continued healing of multiple illnesses and diseases, from cancer to tuberculosis-like infection. But there is a big part of my story, if you can get past the stigma of it all, that we understand the reality of the story was I've survived countless issues without a functioning immune system. And you can read about more of how that happens in the story, but it still confounds the doctors. And it was really the motivating spur of telling the story. It was the Mayo Clinic, literally saying, let's just get it out there and see what happens. We think it's important to talk about it, so I did it.
Do you find it frustrating that the doctors don't have an explanation for what you have been through and how you are able to carry on?
Ironically, no. One of the things from my near-death experience, if I can be so bold, was coming to the conclusion that there's a couple ways to learn something new in life. A new experience, which is kind of rare these days in our little comfort zone routines that we have. Or B, actually admitting you might be wrong. So I'm okay with some ambiguity. What I'm not okay with are the doctors who take such a stern position that they're not at least open to again, when we talk about these near-death experiences coming back and surviving these crazy things, it's a one-time deal for a lot of them, but mine has been multiple illnesses and injuries. I've been diagnosed terminal twice. I was in hospice for 60 days. So, the reality still is, after about 500,000 of these miraculous stories, to me, they just stopped becoming a miracle. And I think doctors are starting to at least come out of the ether and be open-minded. So I don't mind that they don't know. What I do mind is when they pretend to know. And I think that's the beginning of the end of not opening our minds up to, because they all know there's just something greater out here. And if you want to rationalize these continual miracles that we keep hearing about, the Colton Burbo stories in Nebraska and, Anita Morhani's and all these crazy stories that people are surviving stage 4 cancers and, go from orange-sized tumors in 2 days are gone. We have to pay attention to these things. Yeah. But one of the things I talk about a lot in the book is the after effects and the scientific research of the after effects of not only near-death experiencers, Mike, but people who just spiritually awaken. You don't have to die to wake up to the reality of your own magnificence, that you can and will heal things on your own. But the environment is the biggest part of that deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, talk about how you came across to know what your disease was, because I think that's an important part of the story, and there's a lot of stigma attached to your disease that I think you personally, and I can think of other instances too, that of people who have had it that are continuing to survive in spite of the stigma attached to it.
Yeah, we're dealing with a disease that's 35 years old. That functionally, in certain segments of society, we've made an impact, but in other segments of society, the disease is actually growing. And it's part of the reason we felt it was important to talk about. But we're also cautious because of that stigma, as you've seen, Mike, with my story, that I generally don't jump in talking about the disease right up front. Mm-hmm. And here's why. There is a stigma attached to it. And there's a human conditioning based on 35 years of, if you were like me, and this is the honest-to-God vulnerable truth of it, I had brushed this disease off since childhood as just not my business. To me, when it became a disease that started affecting people, it was considered a gay disease. And the people who weren't kind of shucked it in the corner of not my circus, not my monkeys, and I was no different. I rationalized it all the way through, but in February 16th, 2011, I was diagnosed as a married heterosexual male, a very successful career, with end-stage AIDS, just like that. Mm-hmm. It took that girl about 20 seconds to tell me that I was dying, and it was a surreal moment. But, again, if I start out the story with that, I lose a ton of people, which is unfortunate. So, we try to just be open enough to tell the entire story. But the inevitable consequence is this: if you can get past the stigma of the disease, you can still functionally sit down like the doctors at the Mayo and several hospitals I've been to and ask that all-important question. Get past the stigma enough to understand that I've survived countless diseases with no functioning immune system. Mm-hmm. It's unexplainable. And I have to actually remind myself of that sometimes. I take it for granted every day. Now, it's not been without failures. Mm-hmm. We've fallen, stumbled, and we've even given up, Mike. And after a year of treatment, we gave up, went into hospice, and I'll be darned, in 60 days in hospice, I gained 60 pounds, came out of hospice with zero issues, other than still the HIV. But it's just been a roller coaster every 3 or 4 months. But, the obvious answer to this, our advocation is, why can't we just talk about testing after 35 years? So our big goal is that sheet you get every time you test your blood on routine testing. They test for about 74 different things. Most people don't even know what the heck they are. Yeah. Our question is, why can't HIV be part of that routine? The CDC even tells us in one calendar year, if we tested 100% of the people, 100% of the time, complied with 100% of the medication that's out there now for these folks and myself, we'd end the disease in one calendar year. Now, we're 35 years into this, Mike, and I get it. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable for some, but that's really what's built and continued the momentum of the disease, is the awkward uncomfortableness that I refuse to allow to stand in the way anymore. Yeah. Today, we find, in the last 2 years, Mike, that the fastest growing population of new HIV infections are females, ages 13 to 24 years of age.
And that's really scary.
That's astonishing. And we can continue to sweep it under the rug. But I don't know what you were doing between 13 and 24. But I can tell you what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And the alarming, statistics that we may be at a certain grade in this world that 60% of all HIV infections people don't even know they have. So we could be missing a ton of people. According to statistics, there's still 36 million people walking around with the disease. And 70% aren't on the medication, which for a variety of reasons. But there's two prongs to that medication, Mike, not just to keep me alive. It actually lowers the virus in our bodies, so we literally can't spread the disease. But 70% of 36 million people, Mike, are not on this medication. Think about that for a little while.
That's a scary statistic. And, you talk about the stigma of the disease, and the thing I always think back to as a sports fan is I can still remember the day that Magic Johnson announced that he was retiring from the NBA because he had contracted HIV.
Yeah.
And the stigma back then was very palpable at that time.
Forced his retirement.
It forced his retirement, exactly.
They didn't want to play with him.
Yeah, nobody wanted to play with him. I mean, he made a comeback a couple years later, but then it was kind of those things where nobody wanted to be around him because we were in a lot different mind frame at that point. But Magic Johnson's still alive today. In fact, he was on the NBA draft the other night when they drafted Lonzo Ball as their first round draft pick, and there he is sitting next to him at the news conference. A great example of what if you get this disease and you do something about it, take care of it, that you can continue to function. Plus he also breaks the stigma of the the heterosexual or the homosexual drug using type of person that contracted.
He was really the first public figure that wasn't considered in the gay lifestyle or the IV drug users or the things that we were able to kind of focus on to ignore it, frankly. So that was a big shock to see. I would have loved to seen Magic do more with his avocation. But that is the powerful point of this deal is you're not going to get too many people who are going to stand up and talk about constructively, arguably, the biggest mistake of their life. But, Mike, we've all fallen. And, one of the things about my life wasn't falling or making a mistake, quote unquote. It was getting the hell up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And doing something with it. I made a mistake. I ignored a disease. I lived a promiscuous lifestyle, chasing women and money and career. And today I'm a best-selling author that gives his money to charity. So if I could be vulnerable enough to tell you what a fool I was as a young man, I'm okay with it. I'm not beating myself up. But people need to understand the changes of these kinds of experiences that literally are changing the internal components of people's psychology. Even my physiology changed after this quote-unquote near-death experience.
You bet. We're talking with Robert Tremblay, the author of the book 20 Seconds, A True Account of Survival and Hope here on Voice of Wayne America. And wanted to take a moment to remind you that your kids are participating in softball or baseball this summer, that Mikey C. Productions has plenty of photos to choose from to help you fill up those scrapbooks. And speaking of scrapbooks, we're going to be adding scrapbooking to our services that we offer. So if you don't have time to update your kids' scrapbooks or need somebody to take care of the work for you, just give me a call at Mikey C. Productions, and we will help you out. You can check out the photo website at mikeycproductions.smugmug.com. You can get your favorite photos delivered today. And for information on scrapbooking, you can send me an email at mike@mikeycproductions.com, or you can also give me a call on my phone at 402-660-9682. On the Voice of Wayne America podcast this week, our guest is Robert Tremblay, the author of the book 20 Seconds, A True Account of Survival and Hope. And the one thing about your experience, Robert, that I know is as part of your recovery is just the change in your mindset about how you approach life and about how you approach relationships and just everyday conversations with random people that you might come in contact with. Talk a little bit about how important that has been to your recovery.
It's just it wasn't a conscious choice, I don't think, Mike. I just suddenly, when I awoke from my experience in an intensive care unit, I felt different things coming from people, a truer sense of who they were, and suddenly I woke up thinking everybody had a gift for me, and vice versa. The old proverbial everyone crosses our path for a reason wasn't a philosophy, it was a certainty. And I just took responsibility for it. Whether it was, for me, it was understanding that we get what we give in this world. So I try to understand and talk about our responsibility in that effort of when we meet another human being. You have about 20 seconds to functionally make an impact that not only could change their day and yours, but everybody each of us comes in contact with. So the responsibility is ours to take in each encounter in life, and to me that was a big part of what saved me. Was connectivity and community and I loved suddenly, like you read about, and I thought and found beauty in everything, and I still do. And that is a considerable difference from the 100-mile-an-hour guy with my hair on fire that was off to the next race. And, suddenly now I find great peace with my pace and my advocation for this disease and my discussion about a near-death experience and its realness and its changes. And we can go to a psychologist for years to change one thing about us. Scientifically now, there's 60 years of research on near-death experience and spiritual awakening where these people are coming back changing almost everything about themselves, Mike, and almost instantly. So, if you relate it back to what we normally do in life and going to counselors and psychologists and behavioral therapists to try to change an aspect of ourselves for the better. And here we are, waking up from some crazy experience that a lot of us don't want to really mention in fear of being called crazy. But for me, when I woke up, it was such a calling. And I'm not alone in that. There are so many of us that just want to tell the story. So it's become a big passion of mine to help others find their voice. I think this world misses a bit of vulnerability. Mm-hmm. I really do.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think a lot of what you're saying in that is, I don't think you even need a near-death experience to really understand this and to make use of it in your life. I think there's so many people out there that they do what they've always done and they get what they always get, and if, just one simple change in philosophy can make such a big difference in their lives.
I bet there's a ton of people out here listening to this who have had their own awakening. I met some at Bressler Park, and the similarities that we have as a community, some of us who have awoken, and that is exactly my point, Mike. You do not have to die to wake up. But if there's one thing about a spiritual awakening or a spiritual transformative event, is it requires a collapse. And that sometimes can be humility-ridden to the point where suddenly you get it, that we're all going to be in these situations. It's how you rise up after. But it was just so profound to be able to explain who you were to what we were. And I have to point this out because there are people out there, again, it's not about dying and coming back. That's the extreme of the spiritual awakening. But there are 15 to 20 million of us out there in the world telling the same stories, coming back with the same philosophies, the same thoughts, the same timing on our changes. And to be honest, if you can't look at the 60 years of research that's been done scientifically, it's begging to pay attention. It's almost screaming at us all that it really isn't the actual experience that's important here. It's the synchronicity of the after effects that all of us are coming back with. This isn't a mass delusion here. You can't have 15 million people coming back talking about the same stuff, believing the same things at exactly the same time, manner, and sequence. If you read it, you'll understand that, again, you don't have to die to have it. But here's an interesting concept. Last year they did a poll and asked the American people, and it came back as 56% of the American population has had some form of spiritually transformative event. That's a number that's more than the minority now and is increasing in the last 20 years. And I think a lot of us out there, even people listening today who might have had their own experience, are saying to themselves, the world's waking up a little bit. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to be able to talk about this stuff. I don't take a big position, Mike, as you found out. But I do take an interest in telling the story with great emotion, because that's how we impact. And it's okay. But how many people are out there hiding their stories and their truths? That's the part for me that engages me, is to inspire people to find their voice without taking a position, or just tell the story.
Tell the story and let
other people decide.
Exactly. It's a great book. Like I said, I've gotten through about half of it already. Looking forward to getting through the rest of it. 20 Seconds, A True Account of Survival and Hope. And I know you were here in Wayne speaking the other night. You're heading to Indiana, is it next, or Ohio? Ohio, and then Indiana.
And then Indiana, for some crazy backwards reason. And but everything does happen for a reason, so I'm actually kind of looking forward to having to backtrack to Indiana to find out what I'm missing. And then off to Buffalo and Niagara Falls for another event, and then I'll be ending up in Vermont for a couple weeks.
And Vermont's where you're from originally, so
right.
you had a chance to go back and see family.
Yeah, I thought I'd go back and end this portion of the trip with a little healing in the family and spending some quality time with people that love me so much. And then I have a couple weeks off, and then I'll be in the San Francisco Bay Area in Marin County, and I have a couple events out there. So.
And you're from Phoenix originally, so you've driven from Phoenix to here.
Yeah.
Eventually, we'll drive all the way to Buffalo, and then back home.
We started a little over a week ago. We were doing 9 events in 9 different states, and some TV interviews, radio interviews along the way, and the rest of the time is me driving, thinking, and finishing some other writing that I've been doing. So.
And it sounded like you left Phoenix in just the nick of time, because
120
degrees there this last week. And
right.
So I'm sure you waking up here in Wayne when it was 70 degrees is probably freezing cold by comparison. So.
I considered rubbing it in a little bit, but I didn't.
Oh well, Robert, it's been a pleasure to have you on the program this week. A great, like I said, a great book. I've been through about half of it already, and it's just amazing what I've read so far. I can't wait to finish the rest of it. And we appreciate you taking time to talk, and safe travels to you to the East Coast and then back again. So
thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate taking the time and just letting us share our story. Again, we're not trying to convince anybody of anything, but we just, we want to tell the story and tell it like it should be told.
You bet. And hopefully, maybe if you're coming back this way, maybe if you want to make a stop in Wayne, America, I'm sure you're more than welcome to. We take on all comers here. So
well, if Ken, Karen, Betty, and Bill don't get me back here, it'll be the Wayne Steaks. I'm a close personal friend of the butcher here in town, and I have to tell you, your steaks here are just bizarrely, outrageously good.
Yeah. We tend to have good ones here. So thanks a lot for coming in this week, and best of luck on your travels and telling the story.
I'm grateful for the folks in Wayne, America. It's been a moving experience that I won't forget.
All right. Well, that's Robert Tremblay, the author of the book 20 Seconds, A True Account of Survival and Hope, here on the Voice of Wayne America. And that's going to do it for this week's edition of Voice of Wayne America podcast. Again, I want to thank our guest, Robert Tremblay, for stopping and chatting with us. And make sure you check back next week as we tell more of the stories of the people who make this the best town in all of America. And that's right here in Wayne, America. Have yourselves a good week, and we'll see you later.